Dollemocracy. Facing down pessimistic politics with realistic optimism.
So Republicans have been getting a taste of their own medicine recently with some of these hateful phone calls that are coming in. Now, the interesting thing is this was a pressure campaign that was launched by Jim Jordan when Jim Jordan was attempting to be Speaker of the House. Now, things are moving really fast, okay? Because this happened, I mean, he was running for Speaker. There were 3 failed votes, and then he, in a secret ballot in their secret meeting, they decided that he was no longer the one, and so he's no longer running, and now they're going to have to go through this entire thing again next week where they put out names and they try to figure out who's going to be next. And Jim Jordan issued this pressure campaign where he was encouraging his supporters to pressure people, members of the House, to vote for him. And if they weren't voting for him, then he encouraged people to call and pressure them. And now when you're dealing with Trump supporters,
right,
this is going to look a certain way. And it happened to take the form of death threats for other Republicans.
A speaker has not been elected.
In the second round,
a speaker has not been elected.
A second strike for Congressman Jim Jordan.
The Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 199.
The Ohio Republican failed to reach a majority.
So let's get a Republican speaker and get about the people's business.
4 GOP lawmakers initially backed Jordan, but switched their votes Wednesday against him, including Iowa's Marionette Miller Meeks. She said she's getting credible death threats and a barrage of threatening calls, but will not bend to bullies. And New York's Nick LaLota, who hasn't backed Jordan, shared a threat he received, telling him to go F himself and die. Jordan has condemned all threats against colleagues, writing, "It's imperative that we come together."
It's an embarrassment, and this is not what we should be dealing with.
There's a growing push from both sides of the aisle to potentially expand the powers of interim Speaker Patrick McHenry so the House can resume legislative business.
There is not consensus, clearly, on who the next speaker should be. And so in the immediate, we need to get back to work. We need to allow Patrick McHenry to do the job as Speaker pro tem with the authority to govern.
What do you say to those who feel that's just kicking the can down the road?
We can't waste any more time.
So before we get to my favorite part of that clip, which I know because you laughed, I want to briefly talk about Patrick McHenry is a strange guy. He doesn't want to be speaker. He doesn't want the job. And he also doesn't want it temporarily now. He's like pressuring them to figure this out because he doesn't think it's constitutional that he is unelected and acting as Speaker of the House.
If you don't know who Patrick McHenry is, he's the little guy, I believe he was wearing a bow tie, who smashed the gavel down angry when Kevin McCarthy was ousted as Speaker.
Yeah.
So he's, your run-of-the-mill mainstream Republican, still a radical, but not a Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz style MAGA Republican.
Obviously not power hungry either.
Right.
Yeah, he's actually maybe someone you want in power, except for he has terrible views.
Right,
so no, but like his disposition is one that you would want. But my favorite part of this clip is the way that reporters handle things like death threats, because she said it in such a professional way.
To go F himself and die.
To go F himself and die.
Oh my God, I love it.
Go F himself and die.
It's going to be a new drop, so thank you for that. And it reminds me of the death threats that we sometimes receive, and we will oftentimes put them out there for public consumption, just so people know what it's like to be a person thinking out loud on the internet, talking about politics online, and you get death threats. It's kind of a normal thing now. I know it's not normal, but it's so routine that it feels like a normal part of the job at this point. And people will always say, "Why are you guys putting this on the air? Why don't you call the police?" And number one, we wouldn't be telling people when we're calling the police.
Right.
In fact, there's currently an open investigation, and we've been told not to talk about that specifically. So we would never...
with both Metropolitan DC Police, but also in coordination with the FBI.
Yeah, so we would never play something and then be like, oh, hey, guys, by the way, there's an open investigation about this. Can you help with the investigation? We're going to take care of it. We're going to take care of it. We definitely think about our heads getting hammered. That's something that we get concerned about.
I don't want to end up like Paul Pelosi wearing a hat all the time to cover up whatever hammer wound I have.
Yeah, we definitely, we're taking these things into consideration.
Yes.
So don't think we're just being flippant about it. But listen, you got to lean in and laugh, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, also, there's a difference between credible threats and non-credible threats.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to go into detail about what we consider credible, but not every threat we get is credible. In fact, not every harassment that we get, which is way more than threats, sometimes we'll play harassment. People are like, why don't you call the cops about that? I'm like, because they didn't break the law. They're just being an asshole. There's no law against being a prick.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Speaking of pricks.
That's a great segue. Yes.
Chip Roy.
I called myself the Segway Queen one time in a video. I think you are the Segway King. That was very good. So Manu Raju, where Manu Raju stands, we keep talking about that. He is a Hill reporter for CNN, and he was there after the closed door vote that officially removed Jim Jordan from being in the running for Speaker. And as the Republicans were coming out, he started interviewing them. And I love how reporters are really just getting in there with the Republicans right now.
Tenacious.
Absolutely, because Republicans keep trying to blame Democrats.
Yeah.
And you'll see in this clip that reporters right now, like Manu Raju, are just not letting that happen.
The candidate now.
You think I'm going to start positing that? I'll tell you what, I'll pick somebody I definitely don't want to be Speaker, and I'll mention that name.
Why is it so hard for the GOP to get their act together here?
Look, I've answered this before. You can agree or you can disagree. We have our Democratic colleagues will not work with us on a single thing to secure the border. Not one thing.
You're the ones who can't get behind a candidate here.
No, hold on. So what we're doing is we're having a debate among the 221 who are willing to actually have a debate about the things our people care about. And some of that spills out in public. And you know what? It's a hell of a lot better than having a decision made by the Kremlin and foisted upon you. We are laying this all out in public view, and the American people can see it. It is the sausage getting made. It's the worst system except for all the others.
You think this looks good?
Look, having the American people be able to see how we're wrestling with the tough decisions and what we're trying to do and doing it with intensity and doing it because we care about this country. And God bless all of these people who put their names forward. All of the stuff that we're wrestling with, because it's a hell of a lot better than the way the rest of the world has always done it. God bless.
What is so great about this is, one, Chip Roy, if you don't know, is Ted Cruz's former chief of staff. So he's in Congress now, but he is the worst of 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 the fucking worst. And he's trying to act like this is the way it always works all the time with all political parties every time you elect a speaker. That's just not the case. Kevin McCarthy, 15 rounds of votes to become speaker. Then Jim Jordan, not speaker. Steve Scalise, not speaker. All of this is not normal. It is not just the way things operate. It's the best system we have. It's the worst system except for all the others, or whatever nonsense quote that he stole from someone there. This is dysfunction. And when he wasn't allowed to blame the Democrats, which is what he tried to do, he pivoted to all that other nonsense about pulling back the curtain and letting all of America see our passion. It's fucking dysfunctional, and it's chaos dipshit.
Yeah, and it's fundamentally what they have brought on themselves.
Yes.
By amplifying the worst members of their party and refusing to rein in the MAGA Republicans. And so now you have given them so much power. You've given power to the election deniers. 2/3 of the Republican Party believes the election was stolen. So like voters, people who vote. And when you have numbers like that, you're naturally going to have people like Jim Jordan, who before the third vote was taken in the House, denied the election again.
Yeah.
He was asked, do you believe the election was stolen? And he said there were a lot of irregularities. He still is saying that the election was stolen. And even though he didn't become Speaker of the House, he still got a lot of votes from his Republican colleagues.
Right.
So they can try to act like, well, this was avoided. We didn't actually have Jim Jordan become Speaker of the House, but you still have a problem in your Republican Party. And sometimes they're able to admit it, like when Kevin McCarthy actually used the phrase that they are in a very bad position as a party.
What history will look at, the crazy eights led by Gates, the amount of damage they have done to this party and to this country is insurmountable. I've never seen this amount of damage done to just a few people for their own personalities, for their own fear of what's going through. And really, it's astonishing to me. And we are in a very bad position as a party, one that has won the majority, one that America has entrusted us with, that a simple 8 people have put us in this place.
I love the reporting on Kevin McCarthy that's coming out, that he still has his name up as Speaker of the House, and he still has his name up as Speaker of the House, like on the actual government website. And there was some reporting on CNN that some people believe he was trying to undermine Jim Jordan because he wants to hang on to like having his name up as Speaker of the House. So who knows with Kevin McCarthy? I mean, at one time he's blaming the Democrats, at another time he's saying that the party is a mess, the Republican Party is a mess. So you just can't trust him fundamentally. I mean, obviously, but yeah.
I wanted to say, for clarification's sake, when he's talking about the crazy eights and this group of 8, he's talking about Andy Biggs, the guy who looks like the out-of-work magician from Arizona, Ken Buck of Colorado, Tim Burchett of Tennessee, When I say Andy Biggs, I meant Eli Crane is the out-of-work magician. Andy Biggs, also of Arizona. And then Matt Gaetz, Bob Good, and Nancy Mace. Those are the 8 that he's talking about who spearheaded his removal as Speaker of the House. Mm-hmm. The other thing you've heard this week a lot is how wildly popular. He's the most popular member of Congress, talking about Jim Jordan. I've heard this multiple times from many different people, and it really tells you the all-out propaganda campaign that was put behind trying to get him elected, because he's not popular with his colleagues. They have his number. They know who he is, that he's a radical do-nothing. I mean, 16 years in Congress, he's passed 0 bills. That tells you everything you need to know about what the priorities of Jim Jordan are.
Yeah.
Ugh.